Itchy Nose. Hiya, how you doing? This is scene 5, and it's really starting to get pretty bad. So this is probably one of my... Is it my favourite scene? I think it might be my favourite scene. And it all kicks off. As we've seen in Act 3, it's got slowly and progressively worse for Romeo and Juliet, and that's not going to stop with this scene. It's important to note that this is the last time Romeo and Juliet have a conversation. This is the last time they see each other when both are conscious. Okay? Now, also, we know star-crossed lovers take their life, but this is the last time we see them when they are both conscious and they actually have a conversation. Throughout this, we see just basically, to be honest, two people who just want to please the other person. And to be honest, I would argue there aren't really many kind of independent thoughts in this one. Now, they have just consummated the marriage. That's the implication as well, that he is gone up using the rope ladder, they've spent the night together, they've just got married, and traditionally, that's where they would consummate the marriage. So we can assume that's just happened. So not only are they legally married, they're also married under the eyes of God. Because that's the idea of consummating the marriage, that if you didn't do that, you could get an annulment and kind of technically not have been married. Whereas now, there's no going back. Yeah? They're no longer virgins, though Romeo, contextually, to be honest, a young lad like that, it would be surprising if he was a virgin anyway. But Juliet would not be a virgin anymore. So we see at the start that Juliet is trying to kind of fight off nature almost. She's trying to fight off the natural world and convince herself that that's not actually what's happening. So it starts off on the balcony and Juliet says, "Are you really going to be gone? It's not day yet. It was the nightingale and not the lark that we heard." So it was the nightingale, it was that night bird that we heard. It wasn't the lark, that means it's morning. And he says, no, I think it was the lark, which is kind of letting me know it's morning and that our time's coming to an end. And he says, "Look, love, what envious streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east." So he's saying, no, look, out in the distance you can see the clouds, there's kind of starting to be streaks of light coming through. It's morning, and they're envious of us, and they're trying to break us up. But that's what's happening. They're trying to kind of stop us being together. Then we get an important reminder of how impulsive Romeo is. He says, "I must be gone and live, or stay and die." Now that's kind of summing it up. They both realise that if Romeo stays, he is going to be killed because he will be caught. Someone will find him eventually. And he kind of gives the ultimatum that either I stay here and die, or I go and live. And he says it plainly like that. Now she says, again, kind of arguing with the fact that this is nature, and she's saying, no, it's not what it thinks it is. She's saying, no, the light is some meteor that the sun has exhaled to be to thee this night a torchbearer and light thee on thy way to Mantua. No, it's a meteor that's meant to light you on your way to Mantua, but you don't need to go yet. So he says, let me be taken, let me be put to death. That's it, all right. I'll stay. I will stay with you, because not being with you for a while, but we don't know how long, is infinitely worse than spending more minutes with you here. Maybe another hour. Yeah? And if he's found and killed, so be it, but I got to spend my last hour with you. He again is trying to be quite romantic. If you remember in the balcony scene, Act 2, Scene 2, he was very kind of romantic and flowery with his language, whereas she just wanted kind of results almost. And we see that here. He talks about all this kind of romantic and natural imagery, and talks about how he will do it because he's so in love and stuff. And then she says, no, wait, it is day. You need to be gone. Again, she wants the result of having him forever. And as romantic as it seems for him to stay, and even though she said that at first, she's changed her mind, basically. And we're seeing, again, two people who don't know what they want. They're just trying to please the other person at all points. So we see again that Juliet is kind of, again, challenging nature. Some people say that the lark brings people together. It makes sweet division. But actually it divides us. So again, attacking Mother Nature as if Mother Nature herself wants to break these two up and not be with each other. Which you could argue may be true in this kind of in this play, that that nature and kind of the powers that be are trying to stop this because they don't want them to die. Yeah? Or that they're reading too much into it, because actually nature does want them to die, because that will heal the ancient grudge between the two families. And, you know, we've talked about star-crossed lovers, that their fates are kind of crossed. Now, just before the nurse comes in, Romeo says this, look, more light and light, more dark and dark are woes. He's kind of summing it up here. The better it gets for them, the worse it gets for them. That the closer and more in love they are, because of the issues of the contextual ideas of, you know, doing what your parents say in the patriarchal society, and, you know, going against their family and honor and all that kind of stuff, the worse it's going to get for them. And, you know, the repetition of those simple ideas, light and dark, it's a clear kind of, almost like a good versus evil kind of thing. That these two things are clashing and one is causing the other. Now the nurse comes in and lets her know that her mother's coming up. Your lady mother is coming to your chamber. Be wary, be about. So it's daytime, it's time for him to go. He needs to go. And they kiss and he descends, so he climbs down. Now again, we don't really see many stage directions in Shakespeare, so the idea that they kiss, and it explicitly says that, is again important, that Shakespeare wants it to be included every time, that it's important that they have that last kiss. Now then down here, we get another one from Juliet here. Look, oh, thinkest thou we shall ever meet again? So that foreshadowing, shall we ever meet again? And, you know, people who've read the play before, or know the story, know that they do meet again, but it's not a meeting per se. They're not both conscious, they're not both kind of talking to each other. That's not how it works. So the answer is no and yes to that one almost. But we are also seeing that kind of shy, that more naive, that more kind of stereotypical young, you know, vulnerable girl coming out of Juliet again. She wants to be reassured. Thinkest thou we shall ever meet again? Yeah? So before, the person that reassured her was the nurse, and now it's starting to move over to Romeo, that this is the person who reassures her. And he says, I doubt it not, and all these woes shall serve for sweet discourses in our times to come. Juliet then has a strange bit of kind of foreboding almost, a bit of foreshadowing. I have an ill-divining soul. I feel like something bad is going to happen. And now she's looking down at him, and because he's in the shadows and he's down below, she says, methinks I see thee now thou art so low, as one dead in the bottom of the tomb. Either my eyesight fails, or thou lookest pale. So she's jumping to the conclusion there, yeah? She's jumping to the conclusion that the worst is going to happen. Now, obviously, we know that's true, but think about kind of, it's almost showing her devotion, isn't it? That she's always thinking of these kind of scenarios that are going on, and her mind's so erratic with outcomes, yeah? And the fact that we've got this foreshadowing in there, and that kind of, again, that dark, fatal semantic field, the idea of the dead, tomb, pale, all these ideas are coming together, and she just has this feeling looking down at him that he looks like he's dead and in the bottom of a tomb. Now Romeo again tries to console her and says, trust me, love, in the eye, so do you. So he's saying, oh, don't worry about it, from here you look pale as well. But obviously again, foreshadowing, because they both die. Star-crossed lovers take their life. He says, dry sorrow drinks our blood. Now, just a bit of little context here, that Elizabethans believed that if you kind of were sighing from sadness, it made you pale. So the idea was that if someone was pale, it meant they had a lot of sadness in their life. That was the idea. And he says, adieu, adieu, meaning goodbye. And he goes out. And that's the last time they ever speak. With that bit of foreshadowing at the end, that there's this dark, dark future coming for them both. As he leaves, she attacks the idea of fortune. And remember, we've seen this before in Act 3, Scene 1, where Romeo has just killed Tybalt, and he runs off and says, oh, I'm fortune's fool. So he's blaming fate, he's blaming fortune itself. And Juliet does the same thing. Oh, fortune, fortune, all men call thee fickle. So, you know, people call you unchanging and immovable. And now I want you to change your mind. Fortune, let us be back together. Don't let it be like this. Yeah, calling out almost to kind of the bigger powers. Now, this is when Lady Capulet comes in. Now, firstly, let me say that I just acted the Mercutio death, so that's why my knees are dusty. This scene may look a little bit like this.
Ho, daughter, are you up?
Who is that calls? It is my lady mother. Is she not down so late, or up so early? What unaccustomed cause procures her hither?
Why, how now, Juliet?
Madam, I am not well.
Evermore weeping for your cousin's death. What wilt thou wash him from his grave with tears? And if thou couldst not make him live. Therefore have done, some grief shows much of love, but much of grief shows still some want of wit.
Yet let me weep for such a feeling loss.
So shall you feel the loss, but not the friend which you weep for.
Feeling so the loss, I cannot choose but ever weep the friend.
Well, girl, thou weepest not so much for his death, as that the villain lives which slaughtered him.
What villain, madam?
That same villain Romeo.
Villain, and he be many miles asunder. God pardon him, I do with all my heart, and yet no man like he doth grieve my heart.
That is because the traitor murderer lives.
Ay, madam, from the reach of these my hands would none but I might venge my cousin's death.
We will have vengeance for it. Fear thou not. Then weep no more. I'll send to one in Mantua, where the same banished runagate doth live. Shall give him such an unaccustomed dram, that he shall soon keep Tybalt company. And then I hope thou wilt be satisfied.
Indeed, I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead. Is my poor heart so for a kinsman vexed? Madam, if you could find out but a man to bear a poison, I would temper it, that Romeo should upon receipt thereof soon sleep in quiet. Oh, how my heart abhors to hear him named, and cannot come to him to reap the love I bore my cousin upon his body that hath slaughtered him.
Find thou the means, and I'll find such a man. But now I'll tell thee joyful tidings, girl.
And joy comes well in such a needy time. What are they, I beseech your ladyship?
Well, thou hast a careful father, child, one who, to put thee from thy heaviness, have sorted out a sudden day of joy, that thou expects not, nor I looked not for.
Oh, madam, in happy time, what day is that?
Marry, my child, early next Thursday morn, the gallant young and noble gentleman, the County Paris, at St. Peter's Church, shall happily make thee a joyful bride.
Now by St. Peter's Church, and Peter too, he shall not make me there a joyful bride. I wonder at this haste that I must be wed. Ere he that should be husband comes to woo, I pray you tell my lord and father, madam, I will not marry yet. And when I do, I swear it shall be Romeo, whom you know I hate, rather than Paris. These are news indeed.
Here comes your father. Tell him so yourself, and see how he will take it at your hands.
When the sun sets, the earth doth drizzle dew. But for the sunset of my brother's son, it rains downright. How now, a conduit? Girl, what, still in tears? Evermore showering? In one little body thou counterfeitest a bark, a sea, a wind. For still thy eyes, which I may call the sea, do ebb and flow with tears. The bark thy body is sailing in this salt flood, the winds thy sighs, who raging with thy tears, and they with them. Without a sudden calm will overset thy tempest-tossed body. How now, wife? Have you delivered to her of our decree?
Aye, sir, but she will not. She gives you thanks. I would the fool were married to her grave.
Soft! Take me with you. Take me with you, wife. How will she none? Doth she not give us thanks? Is she not proud? Does she not count her blessed, unworthy as she is, that we have wrought so worthy a gentleman to be her bride?
Not proud you have, but thankful that you have. Proud can I never be of what I hate, but thankful even for hate that is meant to love.
How? Chopped logic. What is this? Proud, and I thank you, not, and yet not proud. Mistress minion, you. Thank me no thankings, nor proud me no prouds, but fettle your fine joints against Thursday next, to go with Paris to St. Peter's Church, or I will drag thee on a hurdle thither. Out, you green sickness carrion. Out, you baggage, you tallow face.
5-5. What? Are you mad?
Oh, good father, I beseech you on my knees, hear me with patience, but to speak a word.
Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. I tell thee what, get thee to a church Thursday, or never look at me in the face. Speak not, reply not. Do not answer me. My fingers itch. Wife, we scarce thought us blessed that God has sent us but this only child. But now I see this one is too much, that we have a curse in having her. Out on her, Hilding.
God in heaven bless her. You are to blame, my lord, to rate her so.
And why, my lady wisdom? Hold your tongue, good Prudence. Smatter with your gossips, go.
I speak no treason.
Oh, good, ye godden.
You are too hot.
God's bread, it makes me mad. Day, night, hour, tide, time, work, play, alone, in company. Still, my care has been to have her matched. And now, having provided a gentleman of noble parentage, a fair dampness, youthful and nobly lineared, stuffed, as they say, with honourable parts, proportioned as one would thought wish a man. And then, to have a wretched, puling fool, a whining mammet in her fortune's tender, to answer, I'll not wed, I cannot love, I am too young, I pray you pardon me. But, and you will not wed, I'll pardon you. Graze where you will, you shall not house with me. Look to it, think on it. I do not use to jest. Thursday is near. Lay hand on heart, advise. And you be mine. I'll give you to my friend. And you be not. Hang, beg, starve, die in the streets. For by my soul, I'll never acknowledge thee. Nor what it is mine shall never do thee good. Trust to it, bethink you, I'll not be forsworn.
Is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief? Oh, sweet my mother, cast me not away. Delay this marriage for a month, a week, or if you do not, make the bridal bed in that dim monument where Tybalt lies.
Talk not to me, but I'll not speak a word. Do as thou wilt, for I have done with thee.
Oh God, oh nurse, how shall this be prevented? My husband is on earth, my faith in heaven. How shall that faith return again to earth, unless that husband send it me from heaven? By leaving earth, comfort me, console me. Alack, alack, that heaven should practice stratagems upon so soft a subject as myself. What sayest thou? Hast thou not a word of joy? Some comfort, nurse.
Faith, here it is. Romeo is banished, and all the world to nothing. That he dares never come back to challenge you, or if he do, it needs must be the stealth. Then, since the case so stands as now it doth, I think it best you married with the county. Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. Romeo's a dishclout to him, an eagle, a madman, hath not so green, so quick, so fair an eye as Paris hath. Beshrew with my heart, with my very heart. I think you are happy in this second match, for it excels your first. Or if it did not, your first is dead, or it were as good he were, as living hence, and you no use of him.
Speakest thou from thy heart?
And from my soul too, or else beshrew them both.
Ah, man.
What?
Well, thou hast comforted me marvellous much. Go in and tell my lady I am gone, having displeased my father, to Lawrence cell, to make confession and to be absolved.
Marry I will, and this is wisely done.
Ancient damnation, O most wicked fiend, is it more sin to wish me thus forsworn, or to dispraise my lord, that with the same tongue which she hath praised him with above compare so many 1,000 times? Go, counsellor, thou and my bosom henceforth shall be twain. I'll to the friar to know his remedy. If all else fail, myself have power to die.
Yeah. She knocks at the door, and Juliet says, what unaccustomed cause procures her hither? This is unusual, and we're kind of reminded that they don't really have a great relationship, that the nurse is the one that brought her up, the nurse is the one that kind of comforted her, and is basically her actual mother. She couldn't really raise Juliet. And we're reminded that it's clearly unusual for her mother to come and see her. Now, then Juliet says, "I'm not well. I don't feel good." Now, I think I've mentioned this before, but when the spacing is like this in a text, in a script, sorry, especially Shakespeare, it means that she's kind of interrupting or speaking very quickly after. It's not like waiting turns. So, why now, Juliet? Magnum, I am not well. She kind of quickly responds, yeah? So again, Shakespeare's asking for certain parts for Juliet to be almost interrupting her mother. Maybe a sign of lack of respect. Now we see a line that we've seen before here, look. What? Wilt thou wash him from his grave with tears? So we saw that with Juliet, yeah? That you can't bring someone back just by crying. And we see a similar message from Lady Capulet. She also says, some grief shows much of love, but much of grief shows still some want of wit. Not a very nice thing to say, but Lady Capulet's basically saying there that, okay, well, if you're sad, if you show grief, that means you love the person. But if you show too much grief, it means it looks like you're a bit simple. You're a bit simple-minded. You know, hide your emotions. You shouldn't be so upset. This is just weird. Now, obviously, Juliet is upset about Romeo as well, and definitely more so, to be honest. So maybe she is being more upset than normal, but still, it's quite a harsh thing for Lady Capulet to say, not even knowing that, because her cousin's just been killed, and they were close. We assume from the way Juliet spoke about him before. This whole part, we get a clever little thing from Shakespeare. So what happens here is the language that Juliet uses can be interpreted in two ways. It can be interpreted about Tybalt, or it can be interpreted about Romeo. Okay? So when she talks about Romeo, it can be interpreted that she hates him or that she loves him. Yeah? And obviously we know as an audience, dramatic irony, that she's talking about how she loves him. But Lady Capulet isn't clicking on with anything because the words also can mean that she doesn't like Romeo. Okay? So bear that in mind when you've read this bit. So she talks about the traitor murderer lives. Okay? So Lady Capulet wanted Romeo dead in Act 3, Scene 1. We saw that. Yeah? Kind of pleading for the prince to have Romeo killed. And Lady Capulet talks about, wanting to poison Romeo. We shall give him an unaccustomed dram that he shall soon keep Tybalt company. A dram is like a measurement. So, he's going to keep Tybalt company. He's going to be dead soon. And we know, yes, he is. She says, and then I hope thou will be satisfied. And this is where it happens. Look, Juliet, I will never be satisfied with Romeo until I behold him dead. So there's that little pause. And now this word here, this dead, could be with this, or it could be with this. And obviously it works both ways, and that's kind of the little syntactical tricks that Shakespeare's using. So, I shall never be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead, aka I don't like Romeo, want him dead. Or, I shall never be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead is my poor heart. Yeah, you see how it works both ways? She is kind of being very honest here, and she's so upset that she's not even thinking about hiding it anymore, almost. And we're getting another bit here, look. Oh, how my heart abhors to hear him named, and cannot come to him to wreak the love I bore my cousin, until his body that hath slaughtered him. So, she can't even hear Romeo's name right now. Again, because she loves him, but Lady Capulet thinks because she hates him so much. Even his name, my heart cannot bear it. Now then we get the really bad news. So, she says, I've come in with some good news. We've got some great news for you, and that's that next Thursday morning, the gallant, young, and noble gentleman, the County Paris at St. Peter's Church, shall happily make thee there a joyful bride. So, the plan is that Tybalt's death was very upsetting and dramatic and horrible for the family, so now they need something more positive. And the idea that there's this ironic, kind of joyous and cheerful semantic field, the use of happily, joyful bride. We know as an audience with dramatic irony that in no way is this going to make her happy at all. She's going to be absolutely distraught by this. And also, if you remember, the AO3 point of bigamy, that she cannot get married again. That cannot happen because she would go straight to hell because it's a sin. And it's also legally, it would come out. And Friar can't do it because he already knows. Do you know what I mean? There's kind of this whole mess that's going on just from that line. From her being told that on Thursday you're going to get married and it'll make you a joyful bride. Now, Juliet's response, interesting. It is a patriarchal society, yeah? Men rule the roost. Women were literally property at this point. That is not a metaphor. They were literally owned by their husbands. Daughters were owned by their fathers, yeah? One of the reasons that Elizabeth I kind of, well, obviously the rumours, people don't actually know, but one of the ideas of why she didn't marry is because she didn't want to give up any of her power. She was a queen and she wanted to stay the person in charge. Because if she married, even though she was the one who was chosen by God and divinely chosen because she was the queen, the man would have taken so much from her. She says, "He shall not make me there a joyful bride. I pray you tell my lord and father, madam, I will not marry yet. And when I do, I swear it shall be Romeo, whom you know I hate, rather than Paris." So she is saying, in no way am I going to marry, and if I would rather marry Romeo than Paris. Now, she already is married to Romeo, but again, there's this kind of double interpretation going on here, and that's quite a big thing to say. I so don't want to get married. I would rather marry the person we've just talked about how much we both hate than marry the person my father wants me to marry. Yeah, real defiance there. And you did not do that in this time. Absolutely not. So, in comes Capulet and the nurse. So Lord Capulet talks about, it rains down right, and he talks about how, it was such a sunny day that the earth kind of cries a little bit, and that's why there's kind of dew on the grass and stuff. Now, we could look at that as a pathetic fallacy. It's not a clear example, but we could kind of link it into what's about to happen, that we've just had this really sunny day, and now there's this idea of drizzle coming in. And the rain. Now we see a kind of a mitigation of Juliet here, even more than kind of she would have been just contextually of being a young, unmarried girl. In one little body, thou counterfeits a bark, a sea, a wind. Yeah, you are much more than you kind of seem to the eye. You've got much more in you than than people realize. Now again, two meanings there. He just sees that. Wow, I never knew you could cry this much and be so upset. Whoa, you've got like a whole sea inside of you and a wind of crying and tears. And we obviously see that as that, yeah, you don't know what the person you think she is isn't the person you think she is. Now we see a bit of foreshadowing here as well from Lady Capulet. She will none, she gives you thanks. So she's not going to do what you said, but she does kind of give you thanks. She says, "I would the fool were married to her grave." So foreshadowing, it's as if she wants to kind of marry her grave. She's as if she's asking for it almost. Now Capulet does not respond well to this at all. And he starts off pretty angry, and he gets angrier and angrier and angrier. "She will none, does she not give us thanks? Is she not proud? Does she not count her blessed unworthy as she is, that we have wrought so worthy a gentleman to be her bride? How dare she? How dare she do all this when we have brought her someone so genuinely great? He's handsome, he's got status, he's got money, he's got power. He's the perfect match almost. Yeah? And she's saying no, and he's like, what on earth are you talking about? What are you doing? You don't refuse to do what I say. And she says, "Not proud you have, but thankful that you have. Proud that I can never be of what I hate, but thankful even for hate that is meant love." Now, Capulet is baffled by what she's just said. Chopped logic. What is this? Proud, and I thank you not, and not proud. Now then, this is where the kind of tirade starts, where he just goes in. He absolutely goes for it. He calls her a mistress minion, and he says, "Don't thank me. Don't give me the word proud. Don't try and palm me off with this." He says, "Fettle your fine joints against Thursday next to go with Paris, or I will drag thee on a hurdle thither." Yeah. So in this time, it was quite common for people who were, disgraced or were criminals to be dragged through the streets by, so they'd be put on like a fence or like a bit of wood and dragged through the streets by a horse, so everyone could see it. Oh, someone's being dragged through the streets. They must be a disgrace. and people throw things and spit on you and, you know, treat you with absolute zero respect. And he's saying, either you get your little joints down there, you use those little limbs to get to that church, or I'm going to drag you on a hurdle. Yeah? He's not a happy man. We then get another bit here, look. You green sickness carry on. So he says, look at you, like a corpse, you're so pale. Foreshadowing. Now she drops to her knees and begs, please hear me out. Let me talk. Now then, flips. You do not backchat like that at all. Yeah? That is not the way it goes in this kind of time. Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. He has gone for her there. He's called her baggage. That she is something that is dragging him down, holding him down. You know, people talk about you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's got a lot of baggage. And that's kind of the way he's referring to her. Young baggage, disobedient wretch. Yeah? Disobedient. There is nothing worse in this time than disobeying your father. You did not do that. And in the way she's doing it as well. This is not just, oh, I'm going to be, you know, getting up at this time instead of this time. This is, no, I'm not going to get married, even though you spent all this time doing it. Okay? Disobedient wretch. He really goes for her. And he says, I tell thee what, get thee to church a Thursday, or never look at me in the face. This is it. You either do what I say, or you are not part of this family anymore. Speak not, reply not, do not answer me. Then he says this other really famous quote, my fingers itch. Now, he's not in the middle of this just going, ah, and then going. He means I'm itching to do something. I'm itching to hit you. Like, he's actually holding back at this point, believe it or not. He says, my fingers itch. Like, I want to just whack you right now. He's raging, fuming, tamping, seething. Then he goes even more emotionally scarring. He says, wife, we scarce thought us blessed, that God had lent us but this only child. But now I see this one is one too much, and that we have a curse in having her. Whoa. He says, we thought we were so blessed. And, you know, usually in this time, people would have a lot of children, but they clearly, you know, struggled for a child, and they thought they were so blessed to have this only child. They finally got this young child, and they were so blessed, and they were so happy, and they gave it everything they could. And now he's saying, do you know what? Now I look back and I see that even one is too much, and that we've got a curse in having her. Yeah? That we are cursed. Now we could argue that's true, that maybe they are cursed by her, but to have your father say that to you, pretty harsh. Like, he's going in. Now, the nurse tries to stick up for Juliet. You are to blame to rate her so. You are to blame to try and give her all this stuff and to have a go at her so much. You can't do this. This isn't nice. And he says, peace, you mumbling fool. When he says, am I not even allowed to speak? He says, peace, you mumbling fool. Don't even raise your kind of voice at this point. Don't even speak. Why are you even talking? Yeah? And he says, you know, utter your gravity over a gossip's bowl. You're just an old woman who wants to gossip. Go and do that somewhere else. This is not the time for you. Pipe down. Remember, she's employed by these people, so big deal for her to even actually stand up against Lord Capulet. Now, then we get a whole bit here about how much effort he has put in, okay? And how he wants to really make her understand how much he thinks he has done for her. And to be fair, he has. He says, God's bride, it makes me mad. Day, night, hour, tide, time, work, play, alone, in company. Everything has been to have her matched up. Yeah? When he's been on his own, when he's been at a party, everything he's been doing has been to make her have the best life possible. He cannot believe how ungrateful she is. He's basically saying, every second of my life, every minute of my life, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade has been spent trying to make it better for you. And now you're throwing it back in my face saying, oh, you're not ready yet. You don't want to do this. And, you know, and I'm grateful, but I'm proud of it, but I'm not actually, I don't want to do this. No, that's not the way it's going to work, is what he's saying. Think about the asyndetic list all the way down. He's not holding back at all. He's throwing it all out there. Okay? He also then goes down to say, I even found a guy who is of noble parentage. He comes from a great line of noble people, stuffed, as they say, with honourable parts, proportioned as one would wish a man. So he's saying, you know, this man could not be better. I have absolutely hit the jackpot here. And all I'm asking is for you to marry him. Now, again, this time, that's what you would do, and that's, you know, that would be seen as a really nice thing to do. And actually, he's been a caring father in that way. But it's just the issue that she's already married. If she hadn't met Romeo, this would be a perfect match. This would be amazing for the time. But again, you did not marry for love. Yeah? Whereas she has decided to marry for love. And that's the tragedy. That's the issue. He then kind of mocks her. Oh, I'll not wed. I cannot love. I'm too young. He's kind of quoting her back to her going, do you hear yourself? After all I've done, this is what you're giving back to me. That you're just too young, and I pray, you know, I don't want to do this yet. And, you know, please let this be nothing. What? He reinforces it, look. Graze where you will, you shall not house with me. So graze where you will, eat where you want. You're not going to house with me if this is the way it's going to be. You are not going to be living in this house. And look to it, think on it. You need to think about this. Now, that is the absolute opposite of anything they've ever done. That juxtaposes their entire their entire view on life, Romeo and Juliet. They don't look at things and they don't think about them. They just do. Yeah? There's no before, there is only now. The present is all that matters to them, not the build up to a decision that comes in the future. There's no foresight. There's no idea of looking forward and looking at what can happen and the best options for them. We again see a reminder of the context. I'll give you to my friend. You're a bit of property. If I need to, I'll just give you away. Because I own you. Legally. So, whatever. I'll just give you to my friend because I'm sick of this. And again, just before he goes, he likes to drop another bomb. It doesn't matter if he sees her hang, beg, starve, or die in the streets. He will never acknowledge her. So, if he was walking down the street in a month's time and saw her begging on the street, he wouldn't even look at her. If he saw her dead in the street, he wouldn't even look at her. If he saw her about to be hanged, he wouldn't even look at her. He's disconnected completely emotionally when she refuses to do what he says. He even swears by his soul, look, for by my soul, never acknowledged thee. Now, Capulet, all the way through that part, has used such forceful and powerful language, yeah? And you definitely want to go back and look at some of the bits that I've not even touched on, yeah? So, really, really strong, forceful, aggressive, violent, deadly, threatening language. Now, she asks for some kind of pity from her mother, and her mother says, do you know what? I agree. Do what you want. I'm done with you. Whatever you want to do, just go and do it, because I'm not going to try and help you anymore. Do as thou wilt, for I have done with thee. I mean, I don't think she was expecting much from her mother, but maybe a little bit more than that. Now, an interesting stage direction here, look, that she's rising. That once Lady Capulet and Lord Capulet leave, she gets back up, because she is now the most powerful person in the room again. Her status has been kind of reinvigorated, because now the other two powers have gone. Because in the Juliet and the nurse power dynamic, Juliet has more power. She has more influential power and demonstrable power. Yeah? Nurse is almost at the bottom of the food chain in this family. And she's not going to get what she wants from the nurse. The nurse is kind of resigned to the fact that this is it. You kind of need to give up now, Juliet. She says, Faith, here it is. Believe me in God. I'm saying this is it. Romeo's banished and all the world to nothing. Yeah? That there's no point in fighting this, because if he's not dead, he may as well be. I think it best you married with the county. Okay? He's a lovely gentleman. She tries to kind of comfort her. No, listen, he's a nice guy. I think you should just marry him. But obviously, in terms of bigamy, she can't, because under the eyes of God, she will have sinned. So the nurse isn't massively helping. She's maybe giving a solution, but Juliet's already consummated the marriage. She's already been married, and she's in love with Romeo. So this is kind of the nurse pushing herself out of the circle almost. That now, the only two people that trust each other are Romeo and Juliet. There's no one else. Yeah? Maybe the friar. Yeah, so look, she says, your first is dead, or 'twere as good he were. That you need to act as if he's dead, because there's no good trying to kind of go against this now. Juliet says, speakest thou from thy heart? Yeah? Now think about that. She only trusts kind of emotional decisions. She only trusts things that come from the heart. And that's how she's lived her life. And now if the nurse is saying from her heart that she should not marry Romeo, then the nurse is no longer with her. On her side almost. Then Juliet becomes a bit sneaky at this point, look. And she says, well, thou hast comforted me marvellous much. Go in and tell my lady I am gone, having displeased my father to Lawrence's cell, to make confession and to be absolved. So she's saying, go and tell my mother that, you know, I've realised the error of my ways, and that I'm going to go and confess my sins before I get married. And the nurse kind of goes, okay, I will. And this is a good thing to do. Well done. And then she goes out. Juliet switches. Ancient damnation, O most wicked fiend. She goes in, like she's insulting her. She can't believe that she would kind of betray Juliet almost. Yeah, that's how she feels. She feels betrayed. And she says, I'll to the friar to know his remedy. So I'm going to go to the friar, who's the only person I trust now other than Romeo, and to think about what he can help us with. And if all else fail, I have the power to die. If everything else goes wrong, I have the power to die. Think about how much power has been taken from her by Lord Capulet, by Lady Capulet, and even by the nurse now. And she says, no, but I've got the power to die. I've got the power to commit suicide if it gets that bad. Yeah? So, if all else fail, myself have the power to die. It's all she's got. She's got nothing else to kind of lose. Because she's lost everything except Romeo. So if she can't be with him, she doesn't see a point. And that's where the act ends. So, any other questions, do let me know. And in the meantime, stay safe. Bye-bye.
I beseech you on my knees. Hear me with patience. Okay.
I'm confiding her. You are doing you may not once speak.
Peace, you mumbling fool!
What are you doing? We do camera trickery.
You were too hot.
Where are you?
And see.